Welcome. Listen to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Now, people don't know how to spell Brien. It's B-R-I-E-N. So it's Ask Brien, A-S-K-B-R-I-E-N. Each and every week, and we've been doing this now. Our first show was on January 6th, 2017. We've been coming on every single week. We also did a pilot that was back in December of 2016. And each and every week, we come on and we teach people something about business. We may interview a founder of a company. We may interview somebody that's going to teach people something about business. But our goal each and every week is to help people in business with something that they know. The website is Ask Brien, www.askbrien.com. And if you want, you can sign up there and you can ask business questions and have experts answer them. But each and every week, people want to know, why is it Ask Brien? Your name is Peter. What's going on? You don't know how to spell? You don't know what your name is? Is Brien your middle name? No, it's not. So, Matt is our engineer, which begins with an E, so I take that away from him because I don't want him to have any thought that he has any power or control or anything. So, Matt, why do we spell Brien with an E?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Peter. I appreciate that. Well, many reasons. First, and I always like to start with this one, E is for education, because we try to educate our listeners each week about business.
Well, I mean, it sounds like I'm taking a college class or something. I mean, education is pretty broad, but I mean, obviously it always is good to educate people. And if you can learn one thing from each and every show, and then you take into account that we do 52 shows a year for over 6 years, that's over 300 times you could have learned something about business. You may not even have to go to business school. You can just listen to the Ask Brien radio show. Now, give us some other reasons why Brien is spelled with an E, because as we know, most people spell Brien B-R-I-A-N, B-R-Y-A-N. But very few people spell Brien with an E, except for the Irish lad down the street who owns the pub. So tell us why.
Yes, well, I'm glad you brought up the longevity of the show, how long you've been doing it for, because E is also for experts, because our guests are experts in their field.
So what does that mean? I mean, how do you qualify as an expert?
It's a timeline thing. You have to have 10,000 hours in your field to be considered an expert. So while you've been doing
things like 5,000 years.
No, not quite. Let me break it down for you here. So we got 52 weeks in a year. We'll give you 2 off for vacation, like you're in Hawaii right now. Cough.
2 weeks. That's like a tease. But go ahead.
But 50 weeks in a year, you break it down, 40 hours working per week. So 40 times 50 is 2,000 hours in a year. You do that 5 years in a row, and you get to your 10,000 hours to become an expert. But as we always say, no successful entrepreneur is simply working 40 hours in a week.
Well, our guest says that if he can work less than 100 hours a week, he's got a good week, and he's taking time off, because that's how many hours he has to work to be as successful as he is. So, but yeah, that's a really, really interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. Why? Because most people in their field, no matter what profession you are, no matter what you're doing, after 5 years, your learning curve goes down. You've learned a lot, but you're not learning as much. You always learn something new every day. Like I learned something new today myself, but each and every day it's less and less that you learn. And so obviously the acceleration, the growth is always obviously in the beginning of learning anything. Give me another reason why Brien spells with an E, and what does it mean?
Well, E.
Alfie.
E is also for experience, because experience counts.
How so?
Well, I always love to use the example of me being the board op here. I could watch someone do this for hours, for even those 10,000 hours, but without the experience of actually doing it, touching the buttons, the hands-on of doing something, I wouldn't get that experience that's necessary to end up becoming an expert in my field or successful.
Wow, that's a really good one. I know there are a couple of other E's, and so I also know we have a show to do. So quickly try to go over some of the other ones. I mean, I know this is a very, very dull show, so give me a reason why we have an E.
Well, E is also for enthusiasm because being enthusiastic leads to excellent results. Another E.
I thought it was all about excitement.
Yes, E is for excitement because being excited gets you going. E is also for empathy because being in someone else's shoes helps you to understand your audience, customers, and products and services.
And we always know, because I'm only 5'4", I can fit into most people's shoes.
Yes.
So therefore, I can empathize with anyone.
Yes.
Now, if someone who's 7 feet, how are they gonna fit into somebody else's shoes?
Not so easy.
I ask.
No, not so easy. So you're saying anyone with a size shoe over 10 can't be an entrepreneur? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, that's what I'm trying to. Well, because I'm short, that's what I'm going to say, right? If I was 7 feet, I'd say the opposite.
Right. Well,
Plus being a New Yorker and sarcasm too. But,
I'll leave you with this. E is also for entrepreneur because most of our listeners are business owners.
That's true. But an entrepreneur is a business owner that usually just has many, many businesses. Now, I know, because we got to get going here, I know that one of the favorite ones of Traci is here, and I don't know what, there's something that you say before it, and you have to prompt her so she knows what it is, because she never knows what those first words are. But what are those two words? GL.
I believe. Traci, go ahead.
Wait, are you just trying to bait me, or what are you trying to do over there?
I wanted Matt to say, "Grease lightning."
Okay, well now you said it, so then I can say, because we're electrifying. Sorry to leave you out on that one,
It's
Matt.
grease lightning, electrifying. With my southern drawl. You love my southern drawl.
Oh, no, I don't. But I do find it amusing.
Multiple personality complex. Okay. All right. Well, we do have to go on the show because our guest is going. What did I get into? Why am I here? And when I see Peter at the end of this, we're going to have a little talk. So anyway, without any further ado, and why do I love that word?
Ado is your favorite word, Peter, because it has one consonant and the rest of the letters are vowels.
Absolutely correct. Thank you, Matt. And as a fellow Mets and Jets fan, I even appreciate you more. But now we're going to live to the show with our guest, Corey. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now you've actually gone through and you've actually survived the monologue part. So now, just like Johnny Carson or Jay Leno, although they're not on anymore, we can begin the show. Corey, let's get a little bit about your background. So for our listeners who don't know who you are, give us a little bit about your background. And I don't need to know, from 8th grade, but tell us, what was the first business you ever got involved in?
Well, honestly, at 10 years old, I started a lawn care company, and then moved on from that.
Lawns?
Mowing lawns, yep. Yep, I moved on from that when I had several friends and their dads working for me. And,
Dad's working for you? That's good.
Yeah, well, none of us were old enough to drive around.
What to do.
So I had to hire some dads to drive us and the equipment around. But you got to improvise, Then I owned a custom car shop for several years, and then I opened a sign company. Go ahead.
So I don't want to go over every one of them, but when you say a sign company, we're talking neon signs or storefront signs?
Every phase of signs. Everything from door plaques to say where you're going to full-blown digital display signs.
And how old were you when you started that business?
23 years old.
So what?
Actually, no, correction, 21 years old.
Wow. Most people 21 years old may be finishing their last year in college or getting their first job. You've already had 3 businesses so far, what I count.
Right. Yep.
And that's only when I count. You probably had 10 others that you don't want to tell me about, some of which you can't discuss. So let's go further. How do you come up with these? First of all, it's a lot of different businesses. How do you come up with these ideas? I mean, what prompts you to say, okay, I'm going to go from one business to the next?
Honestly, it's all about income and availability of work. So I grew up very poor, so I learned to take advantage of every opportunity presented. I started the sign business when I was doing custom car work for some car dealers, and there was a bid on a car dealer's desk for a new lighted sign, and I couldn't believe how much money they were charging for what they were doing. And honestly, I said, well, I could build that. And he said, could you do it any cheaper? And I said, sure, a little bit. And he had me build it, and from there, it just kept going.
So at that time, though, you were in the custom car business. You decided to, did you immediately switch over to signs, or it took you a while to get into that? Till you started making...
it was about a year of blending. And just looking at the numbers, I was making much more profit in the sign, building signs and some custom fabrication work than I was doing the same type of work, but on cars. There was just, the businesses were going to spend more money and valued my time better. So I went that route.
And where were you living at the time? Where was the business located, I should say?
I was in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Rapid City, South Dakota. It's pretty unusual to have consider that entrepreneurs coming out of Rapid City, South Dakota, and that there's so much business there that you went into all these different businesses. I mean, you would think it's like, Silicon Valley or somewhere, but that the population, I don't think, would be that high there compared to California or New York or something. So it must be even more difficult to do business that way. Did you find that a smaller population was more difficult or less difficult, do you think?
It was probably a little more difficult, but I've always been willing to travel. So I have signs in 22 states that I have built, including some ones in Arizona and a small one in Vegas and different places. Wherever I went somewhere and met somebody and they said, oh, it's too bad you're not here, we'd have you build a sign, I would reply, well, I can build one and bring it. So we'd go home and build it and then truck it down.
Wow. And so it's interesting, though, that so were you building signs all in Rapid City and then shipping them out to people, or were you actually going to each place to see what was there before you built the sign?
Oh, we would go out. We would typically already be in town. Like a lot of times I'd be on what was supposed to be a vacation and run into a business, and I would tell them, your sign needs help. And they'd say, oh, I've tried to get somebody over here 10 times. And I'd say, oh, well, I could build it for X, but I'd have to go back home, build it in South Dakota, and deliver it. And I was surprised how many people would say, well, if you can build it for that, do it. And go back home from vacation, I'd build it and go back.
What do you think attributed you to having the better prices than most other people? Is it that you didn't have as much overhead because you were doing it alone? Or is that one reason, or do you think there are other reasons why you were able to compete competitively with bigger companies and other people at the time?
I think for some of the big cities, it was honestly just a little bit of greed. They had much higher markup ratios that they were using than what I used in Rapid City. So when I gave them, the price, even with trucking and so forth, to come back down and help put it up, it was still cheaper than what the big city guys wanted to do it.
Are you still in the sign business today? I mean, I know you've got
we still build signs. We still do fabrication. I also own a heavy equipment rental company. We also just invented a new product.
Heavy equipment? Yep. Are we talking like John Deere? What are we talking about?
Front end loaders, excavators, bobcats, scissor lifts, telehandlers, that type of stuff.
And so you're like a U-Haul company, sort of, right? Or United? You're like United Rental. Have you heard of United Rental?
More like a United Rental. Yep.
Well, but aren't you tying a lot of? So that's a good question there too. That's a highly capitally intensive business. So people that don't know, these are very expensive pieces of equipment to buy, and they're renting them out. And it's not like a car. A car you might be able to buy for $25,000, but some of these pieces of equipment can get quite costly. So how do you handle that?
Honestly, I'm very financially disciplined, so I carry very little debt. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and I typically put away money every month towards something I want and then purchase it cash versus buying it and having to pay almost double with interest.
And
you
so
know, 20-some years gives you that advantage.
Well, that's pretty big. Now, so is your business online, or is it pretty much you get most of your customers from, people just see you down the street?
Both. We sell a lot of metal artwork on our website, which is mountainmanmetalart.com. And then we do industrial frame.
That's something new. I know you asked me about that earlier, but what exactly does that mean, this metal stuff that you're referring to?
We do everything from wall art for inside homes to address signs and stuff for ranches, archways, memorial benches, custom benches for cities, landscape steel work. That's all the artsy side.
So when people say to us, what is an entrepreneur? I'm just going to say Corey, because this is exactly what an entrepreneur does. People may say, whoa, he's in so many different businesses. We haven't really gone over all the different businesses that he's in, but it seems like he's just starting businesses every day, and he's into everything. And I can't even follow, right? But the reality is that's what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur, their goal, I think, is to start a business and to make it some point where can survive on its own and then go on to the next, because that's what an entrepreneur likes to do. Would you think that's a good definition, or do you think it's not a good definition?
That's exactly what I do. No, that's exactly what I do. Get them to where they're staffed with people that can let them take care of themselves and then start another one. I like the challenge of it.
I think a lot of people have that concept, right? It's some people can't even do one, all right? But you're doing. How many businesses do you think you have?
Right now we have 5 running with our new one we just started.
Wow. And that's over, what, a 20, 25-year period?
Well, we have 5 running right now. Over the whole time, I think I've owned 20-some businesses, built them up and sold them, or some I sell. And, I closed one just because demand changed and there just wasn't profit in it no more.
You didn't want to hire your neighbor's dads to mow the lawns? Is that it?
No. No.
And that's actually another interesting question. You're in South Dakota. I mean, I know it gets pretty cold there. I would think that I'm surprised you didn't say you were in the snowplow business at some point. I would think that
we did own a snow removal company at one time, and I sold it.
Well,
it's hard to get reliable employees to wake up in a blizzard.
Right?
No. It's just hard to get reliable employees to wake up in a blizzard.
It's hard to get reliable employees, period. End of sentence.
This is true.
I mean, it's even worse nowadays. You don't know this, Corey, but I went to the University of Buffalo. People on the show know that, but you probably didn't. And so I went to the University of Buffalo, and so I'm a little familiar with snow. We've had.
Right.
I've been there through big storms. We're going to be taking a break. So, Matt, thank you very much. KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. Corey will be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show at KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Ask Brien, AskBrien. And we're listening. We have an interview today with Corey. Now, Traci, my wonderful co-host, has always loves to pivot. She goes, Peter, you're going down the wrong direction. I want to pivot over here. So go ahead, Traci.
Okay. So I would love to pivot. I mean, first of all, serial entrepreneur, no doubt about it, and love all about your story that you've shared so far. And our audience loves when someone who has the level of experience that you do in multiple different types of businesses to share, like, tips for shortcutting their learning curve. So let's start with when you are starting a business, you were sharing about your financial discipline. What is a tip that you could share with a new business owner when they are discerning what investments to make out of the gate and which ones to maybe wait on until their revenue gets a little stronger?
Well, we typically I only commit to as much debt as I can earn in a week. And the reason I do that is if for some reason you have a 2-week gap in your month, you're still able to earn enough money to cover your bills and still have enough money to earn the next week to cover, still progressing forward, getting a little bit of new equipment, whichever. I pick the equipment based upon what we've had the most requests for that we couldn't fill due to lack of the equipment to build it.
So I totally love that, and I think that is ultra responsible. But let's break it down a little bit further. So if you are having to evaluate, let's say, between a marketing expense or an equipment expense or a new hire, how would you evaluate which direction to go in?
So I'm a big believer in equipment and the new hire. I honestly do very little marketing because if you have the ability to take care of your customers on many playing fields, you will have to advertise less. And if you have enough employees that you don't have people stressed out and overworked, you will have to look for new employees less and can concentrate on new work. Where we're at, it's a smaller community, so word of mouth is much, much better than any radio or TV commercial you can buy.
Great. I love that. So what are some of the things that you do when you're looking to add to your team? Like, where are places that you recruit new employees?
I first, honestly, typically ask my friends on Facebook who they know that would be reliable, that they know is looking for work. And the reason I do that is obviously since they know me, they know what type of person I am, and they already have a little bit of an insight on what type of person is going to get along with me. They also are able to take the person before they just send them in to say, go apply and see Corey, to go through and say, well, this is some of the stuff he does. I'm noted for kind of working no matter what the weather is like. And as Peter said, the weather in South Dakota can be quite brutal. Today's 65-mile-an-hour winds, and I think it's about 12 degrees out.
Wow.
That's one part of it. The other thing is just having the equipment to not have to say no. You can advertise all you want and have people call you, but if you can't do the work, it doesn't matter that they called you. And you establish a reputation, you can't do it.
Yes. No, and customer service, which as it should be, sounds like it's a really one of your top primary areas of focus, but also growth vehicles. Do you often engage your happy clients to get testimonials and referrals? And if so, how do you do that?
I typically post pictures of work done for most of my clients on our internet site on Facebook, and then also on our website, depending on the type of work it is. And then I make sure and tag them. I ask them if it's all right if I tag them, because people like to show off their new project. So if we build them a really beautiful new entry gate or whatever, they like to, when they're tagged, say, oh, yeah, this is the gate that we just got, and tell their friends all about it.
Yeah, that works out great. And then people can also share it and things like that, too.
Exactly.
And
yep.
So is that the area of marketing then that you would consider that to be probably your primary marketing then, is to market images and positive experiences with your customers on social media?
Exactly.
How else do you use social media for your business?
For our business social media, we just post a lot of, actually my wife actually is the one that do it. I'm always busy, but we just post a lot of projects underway. People like to follow along and kind of see something coming together and the steps, that went through for it to come together. And that seems to be very effective. The other thing that we do that works quite well for advertising is we have a mobile trailer that's 40 foot long that has several hundred pieces of artwork in it. And we set it up at trade shows and different events. And people come in and look at that stuff, and then they will end up looking at our book or our website with the other projects on it. And even though there's not a lot of extremely expensive items in the trailer that goes out, it usually generates a lot of bigger jobs because people are like, oh, I always wondered who could do this. What would you charge to do this?
Yes, I think it's so great when people can actually like touch and feel, especially when you're dealing with such custom work like what you're doing. So do you and your spouse work in your business together?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. So I always love to ask this question, which is, what are some of the challenges in that type of scenario have you guys faced and overcome in terms of setting roles and boundaries and contributing to each other's success?
I have to be honest, I have an amazing wife. She has, we haven't had to overcome hardly anything. She knows all of my weak points, so to speak, like I hate paperwork. So she handles paperwork, and she's a very good utility player wherever we need her to be. I'm fortunate to be married to a farm girl, so any equipment that needs moved or hauled or dropped off, if I'm busy, she grabs the reins and takes care of it. I couldn't ask for a better partner that way. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, and I hope she's listening because I think that is awfully kind and great answer ever when I've asked that question before. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced as an individual, as an entrepreneur, without the support of your wife doing the paperwork for you or with you?
Several things. Keeping liquid capital is always a challenge. We're good at what we do, and we have a lot of customers. I have a lot of larger commercial customers, and it's very easy to tie up hundreds of thousands of dollars in product and material, and you have to have money on hand to do the work, and you also have to understand that some of your commercial customers might not pay for 30 days once you invoice them. Some have other challenges. I mean, cash flow is probably one of the biggest business challenges to keep enough liquid to keep everything moving forward.
And what kind of suggestions could you make for having that become a little maybe less stressful?
For us, we try to make sure that we have a decent sized deposit down, so we don't tie up as much of our money. And then the other thing is to be honest with your customers. Our customers all know that, and it's in all of our contracts, on all of our invoices. We typically request to be paid when the job's done or within 14 days. Some obviously take longer, but it still, for the most part, lets them know that, when you initially sign the contract or sign the job to start, that this is your expectation. And it's better to be upfront. I run into a lot of business owners that say they have cash flow problems because they have a lot of 90-day pay people, but they haven't told their people that they expect any different. So if they're dealing with a big company, a lot of big companies have a 30 to 90-day kind of standard pay system. So if they don't know that you expect something different, that's how it's going to work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we're going to take a break with our sponsor and just give us a couple minutes for our sponsor, and we'll be right back. Stephanie, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Wow. We're honored and privileged to have you. So explain to us, because we know that you sponsor two different companies, and nobody understands what these companies are. But we know that one of the sponsors for the Ask Brien Radio Show is a company called Albany Farms, and their main product is Twisted Noodles. So please explain what that is and what's going on there and why you're sponsoring the show.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, great question. So Albany Farms is a manufacturer located in South Dakota in a small town called Belfouche, and our brand of ramen is called Twisted Noodles. And honestly, I have to say that it's the best twisted, I was going to say twisted noodles, they are twisted, but it is the best ramen that I've tried so far. We have a lot of great flavors, and we actually have a lot of great retail customers. You can find our Twisted Noodles in local Target markets, as well as MJ's, Loiters, and I believe South Dakota Mart now as of today. You can also find Twisted Noodles in select Walmart Canada stores. And yeah, the business is growing and our product is great. So if you haven't checked it out, you definitely have to.
And somebody told me that one of the benefits of your company is it's made in America. So it's one of those made in America products that all the ingredients or everything, or most of the ingredients, are all produced and manufactured in USA. Is that correct?
Exactly. We source locally, and our employees are so proud of that, and we are too. And it's just great to make something here and create jobs and opportunity for everybody. And it's been amazing so far.
Well, thanks. And then the other company that is sponsoring the show that you also connected to is Legal Steps, and everybody says, "What is that?" Because everybody thinks of the Supreme Court, and there's like 9 or 18 steps to get to the Supreme Court house, and they think it has something to do with that. What is Legal Steps, and why is it spelled with a Z?
Yeah, Legal Steps is great. If you don't know about it, you should. It's basically a do-it-yourself system to handle legal issues, such as like forming a business, for instance, or even creating a federal trademark. Basically, it saves you thousands of dollars, and I find it to be one of the most empowering resources out there for new entrepreneurs, even the entrepreneurs who think they even have a solid game. It makes legal really easy, and the reason why it has a Z is because it covers everything from A to Z. It's really great.
Wow. That's very good. Thank you very much, Stephanie. I know you've got a lot of projects you're working on, and you're twisting a lot of those noodles by hand. So I know you got a lot of work to do there. Until next week, thank you very much, Stephanie. We're going to go right back to the show. Thanks.
See you then. Bye.
Bye. So, Traci, you had a couple more questions?
Yes. So we were talking through some of the tips and lessons learned in starting and growing businesses. If you could pick one thing that you would do differently, what do you think that would be? And if it's more than one thing, that's okay too.
Honestly, what I would do is I would, in the beginning, I used to let a lot of people's input affect whether or not I tried something. I would ask a lot of people their opinion. Later in business, I learned that there's two different mindsets, and some people are supposed to be employees, and that's okay, but they can't understand the things about a business, the rewards, the why you would do it, or, they're closed-minded. So if they don't think it's a success, then it can't be. And I learned that was a negative impact on me. So in the beginning, I used to say, "Oh, what do you think of this idea?" And I had to have everybody tell me, "Oh, it's a great idea," before I really wanted to try it. Since then, I've learned that if I believe it's a great idea, the only way it can fail is if I give up.
Oh, that's such powerful advice. What keeps you from giving up?
I just don't like to quit. I've never really been a quitter, so I don't like to be defeated, especially by myself. There's always a way to make an idea, a product, a job. Any obstacle in life can be overcome if you just don't give up and truly try. And if it doesn't go right the first time, then try again.
I love that advice, and it's so true. And sometimes the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is to not give up, right? Like just to seeing yourself through that next day or that next week, because the beauty of all your work will pay off, but sometimes it just doesn't feel that way right in the immediate moment, right?
Yes, correct. You got to learn to not let yourself become overwhelmed, and to break things into steps. And, not every day is going to be perfect. You just set up the things that you can make happen that day instead of focusing on the things that you can't.
And how do you engage with mentors, advisors? Like, do you have anybody that's been really key to your success as you've grown these multiple businesses?
I have to be honest. I have a lifelong friend named Lance Hendrickson that I worked for a while, and sometimes I won't ask him advice so much about whether or not what he thinks I'm trying to do is going to be successful, but I will tell him, here's my situation. This is how I'm trying to solve it. Is there anything you could add to that as a way to maybe find my solution? And he's a very honest gentleman. Another person I use a lot is named Lauren Lippert. And honestly, it's just about fairness, conflicts with employees. I'll call Lauren or Lance up and say, hey, this is what's going on. Obviously, I want me to be right because it's just human nature. But am I right or am I wrong? And if they tell me, well, you might be being a little hard on them or whatever, then I go, okay, then I'm probably wrong. And then I accept that I'm wrong and communicate to them that, hey, I'm not perfect either. I must have been having a bad day, or I understood it to be this way, but after talking to someone else, I can see your side of it. And it helps a lot with business relationships, personal relationships, everything. To know that you're not always right is always a big key. A lot of people would rather never admit that they're wrong and accept failure because of it.
Yes, those types of people are annoying.
Well, I don't want to get into that, but we do have to take a break. And you're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Traci, you're going to try to explain to people how people can reach Mr. Corey. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, you've given, again, so much insightful information on your entrepreneurial journey. What is the best way that people can continue this conversation with you if they wanted to get more insight?
My business phone number is area code 605-858-1593. Or go to our website, mountainmanmetalart.com, and fill out the contact information.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that is definitely going to happen. And if you are listening to the show and you didn't get to write that down, or if you had to be driving in traffic and want to go back and re-listen to all of these amazing points that we shared on today's episode, be sure to grab any listening platform where you download your podcast, so anywhere where you get your favorite shows, and download the Ask Brien. Of course, that's AskBrien podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify. Wherever you find your podcast, you will find the Ask Brien podcast. Peter?
Great. Thank you very much. So, Corey, a lot of our people are saying that, you need a lot of money to get in all these businesses. Now, you're sitting there and saying, okay, I'm very disciplined and I can put money aside. When you're in a capital-intensive business, such as renting out equipment, there's a lot of money that has to be put into those products. If people, if you're not renting them out with full capacity, you're ending up in problems. So what can you do from a financial perspective when you don't have the cash flow?
We start small. Like, you can lease a couple of small pieces of popular equipment, so to speak, like mini excavators rent extremely well. And you can buy a mini excavator for $70,000. And quite honestly, if you rent it out for 2 months worth of rental time, you can pay it off. And that's what I do. When I have debt, any rent from that equipment goes straight to paying that equipment off. And then I buy another piece of equipment. Baby steps is important when you're starting out. I've seen a lot of businesses go out and finance 10 or 15 pieces of equipment, which is great to start out with that. But while you're waiting for people to realize who you are, it's a great way to go broke from trying to make the payments on all those equipment as well.
And how do you deal with recessions?
Well, for me, the way I deal with it is, like I said, I keep all my stuff paid off. So I don't have a lot of monthly financial commitment. So I can weather the storm much better than somebody that has 20 pieces of equipment and they all have a loan on them. I don't have any loans on mine, so I don't have to worry about, the term is such a big nut to bust every month. You gotta crack the nut of where you start to break even. I try very hard to make sure that I don't have a lot of debt debt servicing kills capital fast.
How do you get customers?
For me, I sat down, like when we started doing equipment rental, I sat down and wrote a personal email to the 10 largest construction companies in my area.
Now,
same thing we do with like metalwork.
Wouldn't the biggest construction companies already have enough money that they already own the equipment? Why would they need additional equipment?
Their equipment might break down and be in the shop, or they might be working on a site that is not worth hauling their own equipment there for just a few days when they could get ours delivered and dropped off and save them time. They could be short on employees to move equipment around or short on trucks. I've rented out equipment simply because, one company's semi was broke down and they had no way to move their equipment. So rather than move it from one job site for a small job, they just had us drop off equipment.
So I want to talk a little bit about this other business with the metal art part of it. How did you come up with that concept?
Honestly, it was completely by accident. I just made different little art projects, so to speak, it was my own form of de-stressing. And when one of my children asked, I was complaining my garage was full of this stuff, and they said, "Can we sell it?" And I said, "Sure, I'll split the money with you." Well, then they sold $30-some thousand worth of stuff out of what I was getting ready to throw away. I was like, well, maybe I should advertise that stuff after all. I had never looked at it as something that somebody might want. I just looked at it as something that was a change of pace for me and my own way of de-stressing.
Well, most people distress by taking a vacation to Hawaii or having a little relaxed time. Your idea of that is start a new business and make some money, which is a great way to end the show. Thank you very much, Corey. Really appreciate it. And you're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. Over and out, Roger.